Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Temple Ahavat Shalom. Great to have you here. Hope you've had a very nice week. Welcome to all those of you who are joining in for our Kabbalat Shabbat service at home. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger. Today we are joined, our soloist for the evening, Michelle Koenigsberg, and down at the piano, and I'm told you might actually see her, for those of you who are at home, for a few short seconds, so look out for that. Joy is our accompanist. I learned a couple things today, that A, it's International Smile Day, which immediately reminds me of Zero Mostel in The Producers, that great movie. He said, "Smile and the world smiles with you." I've always liked that line. And today I also learned it's International Music Day, not World Music Day, but International Music Day. So two things on October 1st. So hopefully you'll enjoy the music we have to share with you, which will begin on page 14 with Psalm 97, the words of Or Zarua La Sadiq. Light will be sown by the righteous when people do good deeds. Or Zarua La Tzadiku Ish Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadiku Ish Lev Simcha. Simechu Tzadikim B'Adonai, B'Adonai, Lechodu Zecher Kodsho, Zecher Kodsho. Zarua La Tzadiku Lev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadiku Yisrael Simcha. Continue with Debbie Friedman's Light These Lights.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
Find the blessing for the candles before you and on page 2 in the prayer book. Bless you, God, for the commandment, the mitzvah, sacred obligation to light the twin candles of Shabbat. So on this Shabbat, we return back to the beginning, to the Torah portion, Bereshit, words of creation, hopefully seeing the words of the Torah with new eyes and fresh eyes every single year. I have a poem written by the late poet Ruth Bryn called Bereshit, Creation. When the divine word ended chaos and nothingness, when God rolled away the darkness from the light, that was the first moment of creation. When Adam and Eve opened their eyes and beheld earth and heaven, that was a moment of creation as real as the first. The sun isn't bright without eyes to see. The waves of the sea cannot crash and roar without ears to listen. Though we are finite, God created us free and conscious, able to share in the power of creation. Every moment that we behold anew the word of God, the jewels of dew on morning grass, the smile lighting the face of a beloved child or grandchild, every moment we work for good is also a moment of creation. Let each dawn rise fresh with hope as it was in the beginning. Inspire us to create what is good. Quicken our delight in all that you create. Earlier today at around at noon, there was a really wonderful service. It was a Zoom service, as you can see here, with 3 congregations. So Temple Ahavat Shalom, we had about 24 folks Zooming in. Had a couple dozen families from Temple Shalom, where Rabbi Adam Miller is a classmate of mine in Cincinnati way back when in rabbinical school. He and his cantor Donna Abu, was there sharing music. And then that's Rabbi Alex Duchovny. This service, we called it a Shabbat of Unity, is really the brainchild of Ed Marks, who actually joined us from a hotel room where he's on vacation. And he, as well as our congregation and Temple Shalom in Naples, Florida, have had a long-standing relationship helping out Hakafah congregation. A Hakafah is when you walk around with the Torah or the Torah processional. And it was just really an amazing opportunity for me personally to see Rabbi Alex up and about. He's so very vibrant and different from the other Zoom calls that I was on, which were more sedate in nature, to hear wonderful new melodies from Hakafah congregations, multitude of cantorial soloists, and just the fact that in 3 different locations, the universal language of Hebrew, when we were lighting the Shabbos candles, is something that truly connects us, even though Kyiv in the Ukraine is almost 6,000 miles away by plane. And that's just a little look at that, Alex Duchovny. So that was a wonderful service, and perhaps in the future we'll come together for another Shabbat of Unity. We're going to continue on page 24. Here you'll find the words of Shalom Aleichem, which speak to the second or extra soul that's said to accompany us on Shabbat. It talks about the Shabbat angels, the Malachim in our lives. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Ki Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Baruni Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mihi Melech, Malachei Amlakim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Zeitem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mihi Melech, Malachei Amlakim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On page 26, we'll continue making our way with the words of the Hatzi or half Kaddish to Shema and its blessings.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabba,
Amen.
v'yomad yivrach yurtei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael, bagala, bagala, uv'izman kariv, v'yimiru, Amen. Yehishmei Rabba Mivarach La'alam U'amei Almaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitale V'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha Brichu Le'elam Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Tahamiram bi'alma v'yimiru Amen.
Together for the words of the Baruch Hu, the call to prayer. Lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai, Hamevorach. Baruch Hu Adonai Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam v'hayed. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam v'hayed. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Let's continue on page 30, words of creation. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Aravim. And in the bottom of 33, words of love, wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes.
Open up our eyes.
Teach us how to live.
Teach us how to live.
Fill our hearts with joy
And all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. We will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue chanting now the words of the Shema from Deuteronomy. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, mind, and strength. Page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anohi mitzavcha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem. Words of truth and faith, emet ve'emunah, are found on 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we are taught wherever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land. The winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Please join us in our words of freedom. Mi chamocha. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Norati lo osefele. Norati lo osefele. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Norati lo osefele. Norati lo osefele. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praise are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We'll continue with the words of Hashkivenu, asking that God's Sukkot Shlemecha, sukkah, or dwelling of peace, is always with us, with our families, and within our community.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu lishalom Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu lishalom Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ushmor seitenu uvoenu lechaim ushalom me'ata ve'ad olam.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu lishalom
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu lishalom Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Vehamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace spread over us, Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkot shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. We're going to continue with the words of the tefillah, our standing prayers, and just a note. After Simchat Torah, after the holiday we celebrated earlier in the week, rejoicing with the Torah, going back to the front, back to the words of Genesis. The second prayer in the tefillah, the Givurot, a prayer thanking God for our lives and also our koach, our strength. Instead of the prayer for the dew, which is in more of the dry season, in the land and state of Israel. We're going to change over on this Shabbat to the prayer for the rain, and you'll find that on page 50 in Hebrew and transliteration, Mashiv HaRuach Umorid HaGashem, but you'll also find it, I switched the slide as well. So let's rise together, asking God to open our lips so that God can hear our words of prayer.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Koneh Hakol V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot U'Mevi Gula Livnei V'neihem L'man Shemo V'Ahava Melech Oser U'Moshiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah.
Bor leolam Adonai Mekaye HaKol Atarav leHoshia Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somek Noflim Berofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Ba'al Givurot Umidom Elach Melech Memit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'nemanata Lechayot HaKol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh HaKol Atah Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh U'Kadoshim b'Kol Yom Yalucha Selah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the three prayers, the Emsaot in between. First, for the holiness of Shabbat, Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat, the blessing of sharing it with friends and family. For Avodah, worship, Baruch atah Adonai HaMachazir Shechinato L'Tzion, blessed are you, God, whose presence always returns to Zion. And for gratitude, finding the silver linings of life, Baruch atah Adonai Hatov Shimcha U'Cha Na'eh Lechodot. And finally, our prayer of peace, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, grant abundant peace to Israel, your people forever, for you are the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamvarech et Amo Yisrael, B'Shalom. Now is the opportunity for us to have our own private thoughts and prayers and meditations while we sing Oseh Shalom. May the one who makes peace, found on page 62 in your prayer books.
Oseh Shalom Bimroma Uyahaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol
Ve'al Yisrael Yimeru. Amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav,
Uyaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru. Amen.
Oseh
Shalom bimromav. Uyaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael yimeru. Amen. This time we'll turn to our prayer of healing, Mishaberach, that you'll find on the screens behind me or on page 253 in your prayer books. This time we think of the following individuals in our community and beyond who are in need of strength and courage and ultimately healing. Yonatan Reuven ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Marcy Bunn, Lisa Cargile, Marie D'Alessandro, Eddie Deerfield, Edie Eckber, Leslie Eckhouse, Evelyn Edelman, Heather Felser, Harry Fleisch, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Maria Yehuda Gonzalez, Jerry Gottlieb, Leah Gottlieb, Doris Harding, Norm Kelton, Arthur Maller, Arnold Miller, William Miller, Rabbi Avram Reifer, Stephanie Ross, Eddie Seligman, Betty Slavny, and Jeff Stark. If there are any of the names to add at this time for healing, feel free.
Mishaberach avoteinu mikor habracha leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imoteinu mikor habracha leavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shleimah, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
There's a story told about a rabbi named Hanina ben Dosa. He lived in the 1st century, and he was a scholar. that imagines the moment that God was about to create the first person. Perhaps because the creator of everything didn't want to shoulder the burden all alone, God in this story took counsel with the Malachim, the ministering angels, saying to them, "Come, let us make human beings." The angels asked, "What shall their character be like?" And God answered, "Righteous people, tzaddikim, will come from them. As it is written, I, God, know the way of the righteous." What God didn't share with the angels was the second part of that verse in Psalm number 1, which says, "But those who follow the ways of the wicked shall perish." Good thing, too, because if the angels knew about this second clause, they might not have wanted to move forward with God and God's master plan in the first place. In the second part of this story, a rabbi named Shimon imagines the angels arguing with one another and dividing into different camps. The angel called Ahava, love, said, "Let's create human beings because they're going to share love." Hearing this, the angel called truth said, "Let's not create them because they're going to speak lies and falsehood." The angel who was called righteousness, tzaddikim, said, "Let's create human beings because they're going to do good deeds, mitzvot." While peace said, "Let's not create them because they're going to be full of strife." So there they were, God conversing with a retinue of angels in heaven, and as the tally currently stands, the vote is 2 angels for the creation of humankind and 2 angels against the creation of humankind. And guess who or what is the tiebreaker? Is God. And God does this by tossing the angel of truth aside. In other words, God was so determined to create us even with our many imperfections, God would cherish and love us anyway, at least according to this midrash or commentary found in the Talmud. This week we read the story of creation, which begins with that big letter bet in Bereshit, meaning in the beginning or at the outset of. According to the text, as we know, God created the world ex nihilo, out of nothing, and divided the creative process into 6 orderly days: light and darkness, waters and sky, plants, sun, moon, and the luminaries, fish and birds. At the end of each of the 5 days, God said the work was good, tov. On the 6th day, God caused animals to appear, and finally, the ultimate work of creation is us, after which God said, "This was tov ma'od," which means very good. It's all found right there in the book of Genesis, the name also of this week's Torah reading. So what went wrong? How did evil come into being? The counterpoint of good, setting in motion the drama of humankind. The short answer is us. We're the only creation that has free will and the ability to choose between right and wrong. Or to put it another way, as God shared with Moses, Eyeh asher eyeh. God said to Moses, "I will be what I will be," meaning that every one of us has the freedom to say, "I will be what I choose to be." As we know, it didn't take long for us to get into trouble. Adam and Eve took that fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, even though there was a great big sign, and in bright neon letters, the gas to boot said, "Don't even think about touching or eating this fruit." Then the first human child, Cain, murdered the second one, Abel, and so on. In fact, by the end of this Torah portion, Bereshit, in chapter 6, God was really deflated. And seeing that humankind's chaos or wickedness on earth was only increasing, the Holy One regretted the choice to create us and devise a plan to reset and start all over again. A momentary lapse of reason, so to speak. I say this because most of the time it seems that God is quite patient, Just think about it. It took 10 generations for Noah to emerge, and still yet another 10 for our first patriarch, Abraham, to arrive. I can imagine God gathering all of those angels, saying to them, look, I'm prepared to wait it out. However many times human beings disappoint me, I'm not going to change. If they continue to do evil, I won't despair. Even when I'm old and gray, I still won't change. Because in Noah's generation, I let anger get the best of me. I brought the flood and started over. But I came to realize that humans are just being humans. They make their own choices, so I'll continue to have faith in my creation. I'll continue to have compassion, and I'll never again give up on humanity. This idea of God continuing to believe in us, despite our flaws, reminds me of an article that I read about 2 years ago about the Jewish comedian Sarah Silverman. So she shared an interaction that she had with a Twitter troll. So to tell you what a Twitter troll or a troll on the internet in general is, this is somebody who says mean and nasty, spiteful things about someone else, many times hiding behind a unique user ID, not their given name, so that their verbal diatribe won't be traced back to them. Now, this particular troll tweeted at Sarah Silverman with a nasty 4-letter word used exclusively when speaking about a female. After reading the tweet, I'm sure that she was hurt and angry. Maybe she wanted to share a few choice words of her own and then move on, but she didn't. Instead, she tweeted the following: I believe in you. I've read through your timeline. These are the different tweets that this person tweeted, and I see what you're doing. Behind your anger is thinly veiled pain. But you know what? I know this feeling too. See what happens when you choose love instead, because I see it in you. Instead of reacting to the crude insult, Silverman responded with empathy and compassion. It must have been incredibly difficult for her to do. Thankfully, she came over what might have been her initial response, anger, and decided to do better. This is just one example of how we can choose to be the best that we can be, and in doing so, imitate God. A rabbi named Bradley Artson, he's the dean of the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies. This is the West Coast Conservative Rabbinical Seminary. He describes a God that encourages. He's a proponent of what's called process theology, which believes that God works with each of us to actualize our potential, much like the angel that I spoke about during the High Holy Days, the one that stands behind every single blade of grass and whispers, grow. All of us face pressure in our lives. All of us face challenges and need to make difficult choices. But unlike all the other animals on earth, only we have the ability to use our life experiences as opportunities for growth. Just imagine what it would feel like knowing that God whispers to us and encourages us to make the best decisions possible. At any moment, we can choose to respond to the vicissitudes of life with anger and frustration. That's pretty easy to do. Or we can respond with love, with compassion, and with empathy. As it turned out, Sarah Silverman, the comedian, treated the person who maligned her with dignity and love. Moreover, she encouraged him to seek out professionals to work through his pain. Because as she learned through reading his Twitter posts, he had suffered and was abused earlier in his life. So she reached out to professionals and people where he lived, and they responded in kind. Silverman could have just ignored him. In fact, that's what many of us are taught to do when we're insulted. She could have responded with frustration and lashed out in anger, but she chose a better path. And while you may or may not like her unique brand of in-your-face humor and comedy, I think we can definitely take a page out of her playbook and choose to act like she did in that moment. And in doing so, act like God. We have the ability to turn a negative situation into a positive one. We have the capacity to transform hate into hope and anger into compassion. Long ago, God chose to give humanity the benefit of the doubt. I like to think that God still chooses this path each and every day by encouraging us and whispering us to grow and to respond with others with a sense of kindness, patience, and love. And by reminding us through the sacred words of the Torah and all of its interpretations that we should never give up on people, because every one of us is resilient, and we can always strive to do better. So I began this evening's sermon or talk with a midrash. A midrash is a story about a story in the Torah, an attempt to fill in the gaps. In this case, it was about the work of creation, with the angels and God discussing and sometimes disagreeing about whether human beings should have been created or not. Rabbi Sandy Sasso teaches that midrash, these stories about stories in the Torah, they can help us make sense of our feelings and give us words when we feel that we have none. It lets us glimpse the light of old souls who saw the glow of the holy in the words of Scripture. And it invites us to find that light within our own souls. May the wisdom of Torah that we begin reading once again, and the many stories written about it, create bright and glowing sparks that can guide us. And may our interpretations, both ancient and modern, continue to shed light on the real-life choices we need to make each and every day. Shabbat Shalom. Going to continue with the words of Aleinu, the Adoration. You'll find these words on page 282 in the prayer book, or right on the screen. Please rise as the ark is opened.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
seated. You'll find the words to the Mourner's Kaddish, Kadishatum, on page 294. As we think of families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning their loved one. As we remember on the Shabbat, Shirley Abelson, mother of David Abelson, Bella Uziel, mother of Albert Uziel, Pablo Carreño, cousin of Belinda Konigsberg, Toby Golger, mother of Elisa Katzef, and Paula Hickey, sister of Vicky Deinhardt. On this Shabbat, we also mark the anniversary, the yahrzeit of passing, as we remember Harry Barles, Rose Bartoli, Doris Spalinson, Mary Lee Deerfield, Max Fagel, Anna Finkel, Gerald Galati, Jack Herman, Larry Kent, Riva C. Kent, Murray Malamed, Benjamin Patchen, Ephraim Rivlin, Sarah Rosen, Ruth Rosenblatt, Harry Rosenblatt, Rita J. Schall, Oscar Schiffman, Alice Tave, Pauline Teckler, Stanley Wayne, Fred Werner, Warren Wilson, and Joshua Zisman. Are there any other names to add for yahrzeit at this time? We say Zichronam Livracha, may the memories of all of these people continue to be a blessing in our lives as we rise to offer the words of Kaddish praise together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra chirutei v'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'alam u'lamei al-maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'rihu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and the world, as we say amen.
V'imru, 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 amen. V'imru,
feel free to be seated. You'll find the words to the Shabbat Kiddush, blessing over the wine or grape juice, on page 5 or right on the screen. Let's do the Kiddush first, though.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, b'ava uvratzon, inhilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom tehillah, Lemikrahe Kodesh, Ze'er Letziat Mitzrayim, Kivanu V'charta, V'yotanu Kidasha, Mikol Shabbat Hoshcha Be'ahava uvratzon Kinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
Chaim to life. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Just a few brief announcements. Firstly, many thanks to Michelle and to Joy. At home, did you get to see Joy? Hopefully. That's a Shechiana moment in and of itself right there for those of you at home. And many thanks to our tech crew there in the back, Mike and Nicole Skalka. Happy early birthday to Allison Rosa. She's a tiny bit under the weather, but her birthday's on Sunday, so if you want to text her or something like that, Yom Huledet Sameach to her on Sunday. And starting this Tuesday, October 5th at noon, and then also October 12th and 19th, I'm going to lead a 3-part adult ed series called Response to Modernity, the Arc of Reform Judaism. So feel free to join me with that on Zoom. And I'd like to close with a song. It probably is going to be new to the vast majority of you. We're going to go through it twice. It's called Hine Tov Ma'od. So at the end of the first chapter of Genesis, remember in the sermon I was talking about it was very good. Hine Tov Ma'od. We're going to sing that. There was evening, there was morning. Tov Ma'od. It was very good. Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa v'hine tov me'od. Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa v'hine tov me'od. There was evening, there was morning, there was evening, there was Vayi Erev, Vayi Boker, Tov me'od. Vayi Erev, Vayi Boker, Tov me'od. Give it a try. Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa v'hine tov me'od. Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa v'hine tov me'od. There was evening, there was morning, there was evening, conclude our service as we've been doing with a prayer for our health and well-being. The mitzvah to protect our lives and others by wearing a mask whenever you're out and about in public. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh. I wish all of you Shabbat Shalom until we see each other next Friday on our next live stream. Thank you so much for sharing Shabbat with all of us.